Hi guys, in this episode we are going to review how the slavery to common addictions started to spread in the 16th century, before it became pandemic in the 20th century. Because Columbus did not find gold, diamonds and spices of the Far East in the New World, he found something much better. A new highly addictive drug called nicotine found in the leaves of the tobacco plant. And the fertile soil of Central America and the Caribbean were perfect to grow sugarcane, thus to increase the production of another common addictive drug, concentrated sucrose, commonly known as sugar, which many Europeans already used. So from the beginning of the 16th century, workers were needed in the New World to grow three major commodities for the European market: sugar, tobacco, and rice. Where rice is considered food commodity, the other two, sugar and nicotine, are nothing but drugs. Now, because the natives of the land did not support the idea of becoming slaves to the newcomers, the Atlantic slave trade from West Africa began. The plantations were mainly in Brazil, Cuba, Jamaica, Haiti, and other islands in the Caribbean. In the 18th and 19th century, with the help of new machines to extract the juice from the cane and faster way to produce the white crystals, the production of sugar reached higher level. At that time, Cuba became the largest supplier of sugar in the world and was the richest country in the Caribbean. Americans are traditionally taught that slavery of Africans in North America was mainly for working on cotton plantations. But the fact is that first American slaves were shipped to North America in 1619 for working on tobacco plantation. Tobacco became the leading trade crop to boost the economy of America's colonies. The states of Virginia, Maryland, and the Carolinas were developed from trading tobacco. The fact is, until Eli Whitney invented in 1793 the modern cotton gin, most slaves in North America grew tobacco and sugarcane. Many slaves were shipped from Africa in the 19th century to work on cotton plantations during the Alabama fever. However, most slaves brought from Africa during the Atlantic slave trade were sent to Central and South America to work on drug plantations of sugar and tobacco. Until chemists start producing drugs in laboratories like heroin and amphetamine, slaves had to grow drugs. Even today, slaves are used for production of cocaine in Colombia and Afghanistan. So from the beginning of the 16th century, an enormous number of slaves were needed for the uprising drug industries in the New World. Tobacco was introduced to Europe in the 15th century, after Columbus discovered the New World. However, the origin of sugar is in the Far East, and it was introduced to Europeans at least 1500 years before the first voyage to America. From the beginning, sugar was used as medicinal drug and not as food. Pliny the Elder, a 1st century Roman philosopher and army commander, described sugar as medicinal and should be used only for that purpose. At that time, because it was rare to find and costly to purchase, it was considered the drug of choice of the nobilities, not just because of its sweet, addictive taste, but mainly because it acted as a drug and lifted the spirit in time of need. And the time of need can be from a woman indulging on a quart of ice cream after she separated from her boyfriend, to a cake and sweets served for celebrating our wedding. Two different and opposite situations, but it was easy for everyone to like it. In the 7th century, Arab traders brought sugar cane from the Far East to the Middle East and production of sugar closer to European market began. Before that, sugar was rare to find and valued as gold. But new sugarcane plantation, improved production method, and African slaves were able to lower the price of sugar and supply the growing demand of it in the European market. Thus, by the time Columbus discovered America, sugar turned from being a lucrative and expensive drug to a common food supplement to sweeten tea, jam, and baked goods. On the other hand, from its introduction to Europe, tobacco was considered as a sacred herb, and it was used as a valuable medicine to help cure 36 health problems. However, users got addicted to it. In 1604, King James of England wrote a poem describing tobacco as bad to the nose, harmful to the brain, and dangerous to the lungs. As addicted to nicotine, King James described smoking tobacco like falling to a bottomless pit. So the king knew about the benefits of nicotine, but on the other hand, he also knew how easy it is to get addicted to it, as he was. And he also knew about the health problems associated with prolonged use of it. Therefore, he knew that smokers addicted to nicotine will bring residual income to the kingdom. By the way, in order to grow and prosper, most corporations rely on residual income, where they bring the customer once or twice, and then he will come in again and again by himself. All drug dealers rely on residual income. They even give the drug for free a few times, and then they collect the money time after time. So first, King James created a drug cartel, and he put a tariff on tobacco. But then in 1624, the king created a monopoly on the drug, where tobacco could be imported to England only from the colony of Virginia. Needless to say that Jamestown and James River in Virginia were named for the honor of King James of England. And the colony of Virginia was thriving from the deal. Even today, we see the tight connections between the drugs industries of tobacco and sugar to governments around the world. Governments benefits either from taxation or from owning the plantation, like in China. The addiction to sugar and nicotine in Europe was inevitable. By the 18th century, England, France, Holland, Spain, Portugal were importing tobacco and sugar, and the rest of Europe had access to them. Though the taste of smoking tobacco was terrible, but the taste of sugar was as good as celebration. However, the reason for the fast popularity of those two legal drugs happens because they deliver what people want the most: the good feeling of relaxation, concentration, self-confidence, and overall a feel-good sensation. And because of that, people want to use more and more of it, especially when they feel depressed, but also when they feel good and ready to party. In both cases, the drug will lift the spirit. And because in the past centuries, life on Earth was filled with conflicts and wars, it was very easy to get addicted to those common legal drugs. The Industrial Revolution of the 18th and 19th centuries caused a faster production of white sugar crystals, and machine-rolled cigarettes helped to lower the prices of those common drugs. Smart distribution of rolled cigarettes, giving free to soldiers in the front line during the American Civil War and the two world wars in the first half of the 20th century, caused soldiers to come back home addicted to nicotine. Soldiers came home as winning heroes and were role models for many kids and teenagers who followed them and started to smoke. Later on, in the 1960s, women empowered by feminist movements did not want to be left behind and join the killing addiction. And doctors, being addicted to tobacco themselves, even recommended smoking tobacco for spirit elevation and for other health problems. That's why it was normal to offer a fresh widow to smoke for relaxation. It wasn't until the 20th century where studies were done to find out the addiction mystery. By the 1980s, studies shows the chemical changes in the brain that activates the reward system. Thus, it is the main cause of all drug addiction. The results of the studies were goldmine to the food industry. In response, many new processed food rich in flavors and high in calories were produced to do one main thing: to cause the consumer to like it and want to have it over and over again, thus turning him to be addicted to it without paying any attention until it's too late. Did you ever wonder why there are hundreds of different diets, but they're all just another yo-yo round? The trip to the grocery store is intentionally full of temptation in different colors and flavors. The target is to get as many customers as possible addicted to flavors perfectly designed for them. The public was never taught about the power of anticipation over his decisions. Thus, when he sees the drug of his choice, without any resistance, he adds it to the cart. That's why expert also calls addiction behavioral disorder or disease of the brain. That is incorrect, because the behavior happens when the addict first anticipates what he will feel after consuming the drug. Thus, he automatically buys it. And in return, at first, the consumer of the drug becomes overweight without any ability to stop or treat it. Then, obesity, suffering from many diseases, and premature death are waiting for him around the corner. The truth is, we cannot stop them from making those products. The corporations are bound with politicians for many years. And until slaves learn how to sell themselves to freedom, politicians and legal drug cartels will drink from the same cup of wine. So join me to the next episode, where I'm going to show you what is causing the slavery to common addiction. No, it's not the drug nicotine or sugar. We are also going to find out why is it so easy to get addicted, why is it so hard to be free from it, and why after quitting, trigger times are coming to set the addict for the next relapse. Meanwhile, if you didn't subscribe to the channel yet, do it now. And don't forget to ring the bell to be the first one to get the updates from me. And remember, now is the time when your voice can be heard for the well-being of others. And who knows, maybe if you share this video with people that needs it most, you might save their lives and help eradicate the slavery to common addictions. And I will see you soon. Bye-bye.